Evolution is natural within the music, but is often thy enemy. Do the band manage to tread this elusive path successfully? Well, you click this video, so I'm sure that you want to know the answer. Or at least the one I will give. Hi people, and Element, you think Carnage Crew is Chili here, the man designed for my eyes, and I'm doing a 5-minute review on Between the Buried and Me and their newest album, The Blue Nowhere. If you are unaware, then Between the Buried and Me is a technical metal core band and has been around for about 20 years, and The Blue Nowhere marks their 11th album. It is also a change of pace that sees funk elements added to the mix, influenced by Prince on a few songs, so if you consider yourself intrigued by this prospect, then I would recommend giving them a spin. It also marks the first time the band has recorded as a 4-piece outfit since they fired their longtime guitarist Dusty Warren, which you can Google the reasons for yourself. As such, this does show a shift in dynamic within the band's camp regarding the music that they have released, and perhaps long-term fans will not be thoroughly pleased with this newfound path. When it comes to Between the Buried and Me and their music, I've always found that it's an acquired taste, developed over time, at least for me. Or at least that's what I found on a few playthroughs before adjusting to their album's full potential. When things we tell ourselves in the dark dropped, I didn't feel too strongly for it, and perhaps this was due to the fact that it felt disjointed without the weight of the whole album behind it. The same really could be said of their other singles to a lesser extent, with Absence thereafter being my favourite. This song seemed to hook me in quicker, especially when you're going through the album on a full playthrough. However, on my first playthrough of this record, I was met with apprehension, unsure of what to make of this latest effort. It felt like the band were continuing their efforts that they landed on with their last album, but somewhat watered down. The complexity that was found on their previous recording was just not hitting the mark on this one, and the heavy sections felt somewhat lacking. Look, it was always going to be a tall ask when releasing a follow-up album to Colors 2, a record that I thought was possibly their best effort to date. And in all fairness, I should be focusing on this effort as an individual release, but you know, we love to compare stuff at the end of the day. So let's take a sidestep away from this and focus instead on the album as an individual, and let's talk about tracks. Psychomantium shows us how the band can still bring it as they channel their inner, brutal technical death metal sound on this 11-minute track. Slow Paranoia teeters into progressive territories with some lambastically theatrical elements that feels like Mr. Bungle crossed over with Periphery. I couldn't say that I liked this track, and it felt like a drag to get through the 11-minute runtime, and having this song and smack bang in the middle of the album makes it very tempting to skip on playthroughs. As for Door Number 3, that was one hell of a tune, and I like it. It was short and to the point. Now, any Between the Buried and Me fan would agree the best way to experience their music outside of a live setting would be to play their albums in full, and a lot of their records are conceptually based, even spreading across 2 different releases on the few occasions. The Blue Nowhere breaks this tradition and forges a new direction for the band, one without an overarching theme, but still feels within the band's style, and of course their extremely slick production quality and flow of the album, which contains seamless transitions from one track to the next. A drawback from this album, especially to newcomers, might be its runtime, which sits at 71 minutes in length. But considering my introduction to the band was their near 80-minute 2020 release Colors 2, an album which in all likelihood will have a slot on my all-time albums of the decade list, then I knew what to expect. Still, after playing this record for a few times, it just feels somewhat as void as their album cover. This album is a decent record, and is certainly one of the better ones that I've heard this year. However, it seemingly lacks the interesting or quirky elements Between the Buried and Me have previously used, and seemingly falls short every turn on this record. In particular, on the final 2 songs on here, which sound nice, but don't eventuate into anything, absolutely blue-balling me in the process. It's just a shame because while I wasn't expecting this album to reach the gargantuan highs of its predecessor, but instead, The Blue Nowhere just falls much shorter. Overall, I'm going to give this album a score of 7 million chilies on the spicy scale, with my favourite tracks being Absent Thereafter, Door Number 3, and Psychomantium. I feel conflicted in giving this score. Maybe it's too high, and because I do love this band, I'm awarding them extra points. Maybe it's too low, as the band set about an impossible task in creating another masterpiece, especially when that bar is already set so high. Perhaps this is their moment, like what Coheed and Cambria went through on Islands, and there will be fans on both sides on this one. In all likelihood, my score is going to change given enough time and more playthroughs, and when this happens, I feel like the good tracks will certainly become much better, but the divide will widen as the more subpar moments on here become blemishes. Anyway, I want to hear your thoughts on this record, so make sure to tell me in the comment section below, as well as your favourite tracks, and don't forget to stay spicy out there. If you've enjoyed this content, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to us, and stay notified for future music related content because it keeps our manager happy at the end of the day. We are also on Discord, Instagram, Facebook, and all those other social platforms if you want to check us out. As always, people, you have a great day and stay spicy.